just planned for this to be a pretty informal kind of session, so you can ask all the questions you want about how I've been tampering with your schools. I say that in jest, but spend all day today with a large group of staff, and one of the things that we really want you to know is that people aren't the problem. You've got great people here, dedicated staff members, people that want to improve, want to see things happen. So, you know, one of the biggest things we have to learn is just what do we have to do to get out of their way so they can make it happen. And I think you're going to just see enormous things happen in the next couple of years if you just keep on that journey. So, you know, what journey are we talking about? We call it continual improvement. And basically, it's not a program, it's not a thing that you do. You don't do quality. It is a philosophy, but it's really a commitment to continually looking at and improving every aspect of your organization. So the training is applicable to everything from front office secretaries to bus drivers to teachers to superintendent. And what we really try to get people to do when they start going down this road is to think about mobilizing a whole district. So if you get everybody in a district all starting to think about how do I improve things, eliminate waste of time, money, and effort, etc., you really start to get tenfold return on your investment because people start to actually make these improvements on a daily basis. When you get a first grade teacher constantly thinking about how they maximize time and improve efficiency of what they're doing and create an environment where kids really want to be there, you're going to see test scores go up, you're going to see attendance go up, you're going to see all kinds of changes made. So with that, let's see. So we have 2 board members?
3 board members around the corner.
So,
yeah. 4th one to hopefully show up shortly.
So what are the questions that first come to mind? Because I know Doug's talked a little bit about what this is about, where he wants to take the district, et cetera, and I'm sure there must be concerns about that. I know when I got into this, I thought I was coming home every day telling my wife exactly what it was all about and et cetera, and I found out 5 years later that she said, you know, for the first 3 years we knew he was excited about something, but we had no idea what he was talking about. So maybe that's been happening with Doug, I don't know. So give me a question to feed off of.
I guess from my standpoint, you come in for a day and we get this great energy. How do we sustain that energy going forward?
Yeah, that's always the biggest question. So it comes down to motivation types of issues, okay? And everybody always wants to know, how do we improve motivation in students and staff and administrators? How do we keep that going? So the first thing we try to get people to understand is the research behind motivation is that you're not going to motivate anybody. So stop trying to do that. People are already well motivated, they'll motivate themselves, they will keep things going. So all you can hope to do within a system is demotivate people. Do things that take away their energy, take away their drive, etc. So we try to get people to think about, well, what do we have to do as a system to make sure that people can maintain that energy, keep that going, working that through? Well, you don't have the answers. So the key is you got to go back and use tools and process to ask the staff, you know, what's stopping you now? What's keeping you from improving or making the changes that need to be made? You're going to get lots of feedback from that. Then it's using that to come back to staff again and prioritize. Say, we only have so much time and money, so we need your help in prioritizing. What are the most important things we could be doing now to make the biggest difference with our kids on a daily basis? So when staff see you're continually coming back, I call it the well of knowledge, and you keep asking what's stopping you now, that causes them to start to think, you know, I'm running out of excuses. You know, if I haven't been putting in my full effort, or I haven't been doing something, I'm starting to run out of excuses because they're ticking off all the problems that we've identified were problems before, and they're doing something about it. They're making changes. And it's the same way in a classroom. So when a teacher's coming back to the students and saying, gee, how was that? But they're doing it in such a way with tools and statistical ways to help analyze it, getting the kids to help prioritize what the problems were, then taking action on that. The kids start to have really good faith that, I hear kids say things a lot of times, you know, we help our teacher when he needs it, and he helps us when we need it. And you create this just wonderful collegial atmosphere that's very strong like that. So you're right, you have to be very careful about it, but what I've seen over and over the past 20 years is people will do more to sabotage the effort than they will to support it. And so every time you think about making a change or doing something differently, you have to think about how's that going to affect the psychological effects of people in the system. So, one of the districts we've worked with the longest is Leander, Texas, and just north of Austin, and started working with them about 1992. They have some pretty amazing results. I'll just show you one graph that I carry around. So this is just their math scores in the district, and what you're looking at is they give their state exams, 3rd grade through exit exams for seniors. So every year they have a test, 3rd grade through 8th grade, and then the exit exam for seniors. And you're looking at the percentage of kids passing the state exam. So in 1993, on average district-wide, about 65% of kids were passing the state exam. And they were a pretty good district. They thought they were, you know, pretty good. And that's when we started really working with them, started to say, you know, good's not good enough. 65% of kids passing is not okay if your kid's in one of the 40% that's not passing. Okay, so there's a problem there. And you can sort of see what started to happen within the first 2-3 years. We didn't get much change in what was going on. A lot of that has to do with the education industry itself. It moves from fads to fads to fads to fads. So if you have a veteran staff, they start to learn, don't do anything, don't get on board, don't try to make a change, because 2 years from now we're going to be doing something else. And that's one of the major things you can do, is to make sure we don't go jumping on different bandwagons every 6 months, picking up this and picking up that, because people start to say, I thought we were doing this, and now we're off doing this, and I'm not going to do anything. See? Because they think you don't have your act together in keeping that focus. So you can see by 96, 97, all of a sudden we got a big leap in performance. You know, you jump 12, 13 points on average district-wide in 1 year. That's pretty amazing. And in those years, it was also hard to keep teachers thinking about good's not good enough. It's a continual improvement process. We need to keep working on it. Well, you can see, maybe you can't see, as time went on, they got better and better and better at it. And then in about 2002, the state decided to shift the standards in the state exam, and you can see very clearly how that all of a sudden makes everything go out of whack again. And so the variation in tests increase, and it took about 3 or 4 years for them to get that sorted out again, and then keep going. So at the end of this graph, they're averaging about 92% of all their students district-wide passing the state exam, and they're telling me last year they're approaching 96% on average. Now what's even more impressive is during this time period, they've grown from 5,000 students to over 35,000 students in the same time period. So this is what we call profound results. We don't see normally places getting results like that. So when you see something like that over a very long period of time, that's a place to pay attention to try to understand what's at the heart of what they're doing. And they started with this philosophy, and they just never wavered from it. Now that doesn't mean they don't consider other reading programs, or they don't consider other things that come along, but they do that all under their umbrella of continual improvement. How does this fit in with everything else we're doing? A lot of things they don't get into, because they understand too many irons in the fire, cause people to give up, lose focus, not really understand what they're about. So they've created a very strong culture of improvement that's lasting, and they've changed superintendents, they've changed principals. You can see it's not having much difference because they have a culture of continually improving everything they do.
Staff has changed during this particular period, though. They went from 5,000 to 35,000.
Absolutely.
Therefore, is there any evidence that it's because of the younger teacher base, or
No, it has nothing to do with it. Sometimes people go through the training and they say things like, you know, only veteran teachers can really adapt to this and have the confidence to take this on and, you know, ask their students what's wrong with what I'm doing. On the other hand, I have first-year teachers say, you know, I didn't know any better, I just thought this is the way to do it. See? And so that's what they tell people, this is just the way we do things here, and it's what we support, and so that's what they get. It has nothing to do with, you know, we have a saying, you can only teach old dogs new tricks. And meaning that if you get those veteran people to really latch on, understand this, and take this on board, watch out, because they'll become your most ardent spokesmen, ardent supporters, ardent trainers. They have the most experience about how to work within the classroom. So I'll tell you one story about this time period. About 7 or 8 years into that, I was doing a training with 4th grade teachers, and there was a lady sitting right next to me, a 4th grade teacher, and she's just practically writing down every word I was saying. And so at the break I was talking to her, I said, well, what's your story? And she said, well, I went to the 4-day training 7 years ago, and she said, I never did anything with it. And she said, I finally determined that this isn't going away, so I better get on board. You think about that, 7 years later, and you've had experience with districts, and some of you guys have too, that's an eternity of staying with one concentrated focus over a long period of time. And most people don't stick with anything long enough for people to see that, oh, this is not going away. But then I talked to her a little bit more, and she said, you know, my daughter was in 2nd grade, and last year she cried almost every day I took her to school. She said, I went in, I sat with the teacher and tried to figure out, well, what's wrong, and the teacher wasn't doing anything different than I was doing. She was a 4th grade teacher, and she wasn't being mean to her kid or anything like that, but she just wasn't enjoying it. She said this year, every year, she can't wait, every day she can't wait to go to school. She's excited about going to school. She gets everything done that she's supposed to get done. She's doing really well. And she said, I finally went in and started sitting with one of the teachers and saying, you know, what's happening there? And she started describing using continuous improvement processes and the kids taking responsibility. And she said, if that can happen with my daughter, I want to be able to do that in my classrooms. So those are kind of some of the anecdotal things you get along the road by having that continual focus. The other thing you get is you just get better at it. Over time, you hone the process.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Tell me how you mentioned, or Doug mentioned when he first came in, that there were 70 people in this meeting today. How do you train the rest of the mass of teachers? I mean, are you relying on these people to teach the others, or is this a continual process where we bring in the next 70 and the next 70? How do we continue on with this process once we started?
Well, there's a saying, you go slow to go fast. So some people want to go way faster than they're able to support. So Doug's done a very good job starting very slowly. He started talking about stuff, got a few people interested, he did some things, got a cohort of 13, who came to Indiana. Those folks came, test group kind of thing. They got excited, a lot of those people are here. They can tell you about things that they've done. Yeah, and they came back and started doing stuff. So I tell people all the time, at the training, your job is not to come back and train other people. That's the telephone game of me whispering a word to you and you and you and you, and by the time it gets down to you, it's so watered down and so confused that the message is lost. So we really teach people, your job is to come back, make changes, implement, collect data, put it to work. That creates interest. So we can see that now, so we jumped from 13 to 70 some people this time. And a lot of those people were people that were there before coming back again, getting a little review of that and working that through. So if these 70 people go out, start to do some things, make some breakthroughs, improvement, make some things happen, they're going to create a lot greater interest. That's going to cause enough people to hopefully run a 4-day conference next summer. Okay, and then you keep moving from there. So I have a phrase: you present to the masses and work with the volunteers. What typically when people try to do school improvement or corporate improvement or whatever, they present the training and then they spend all their time working with the naysayers. People that don't want to do anything, don't want to get on board, are causing lots of trouble, et cetera, and so they're trying to placate them, and all their time ends up going in that direction. So we try to get administrators to do just the opposite. You got people out there, pioneers, that are trying to do the right thing, trying to make breakthroughs. Your job is to protect them. Give them enough time, enough space to implement and make some changes to make those kinds of breakthroughs. And what you end up doing is expanding the good, and there's less and less room for the bad, basically. Happened on my small little staff of 25. Very same thing. We used to have teacher evaluation process. We come in and inspect all the teachers. We try to figure out who the bad ones were. Then we tried to go through this long, drawn-out process to get rid of the bad ones. And while we're doing all that, the people who are actually trying to do something good are just kind of left out there to hang because they don't have really the support that they needed. So when we reversed that, we said, okay, really the only way you can get rid of somebody is for something just horrendous anyway. So the rest of the time we're going to spend all of our time supporting people that want to really move forward. And what happened with us is people that were not good teachers that did not want to get on board felt more and more uncomfortable. So they eventually either started, like on the story I was just describing about the 4th grade teacher, they eventually start getting on board and starting to do something, or they go find someplace else to work. Either way, you win. Okay. I had people on my staff that we were trying to get rid of before we got into this. Okay, hoping they would retire, do stuff, push them out, etc. And just the reverse happened. They got into it, got on board with it, and decided not to retire, and became some of our greatest stars in what they were doing.
Just to piggyback on that, just about everyone who went to that conference in June has been using some of the tools that David has talked about. And in our manual, we have this book called The Tool Time for Education. And it's not just all about tools, because you have to have the philosophy behind it. You have to have what Dr. Denman calls the profound knowledge, and part of that is theory. You have to understand that. But we now have people, almost everyone in this room has used it. I know Ashley, as a 1st grade teacher at Valerius, has used it with her 1st graders. And the conversation I heard around her table today were these veteran teachers. I mean, you're a little bit veteran, but not a whole lot veteran. Some really veteran teachers saying to her things like, and you learned this in 4 days, and now you're already doing it. And your answer to them was
this to choose one thing? And I said, if you found one thing that you think that you can implement this year, then you're on the right track. And so just start small so you can finish fast. So, yeah.
And that's the advice that David gave. You know, where do you start? Well, you start where you have leverage. Teacher starts then in the classroom. The principal starts at the building. I can work more at the district level. So I'm really quite excited about what I've seen so far. And we've had staff members then say, you know, I didn't use that tool quite right. It didn't work out the way I wanted to. And I said, well, it's too bad, but great, because you've learned something. And really what we're trying to be all about is everyone learning. So this continual improvement is for every single person in this district, primarily focused on students.
I think that's great advice, Ashley. I think that it would be easy to be overwhelmed sometimes with when people are introducing something new, a shift in your whole paradigm, that you'd look at it and go, well, you know, what do I do and how do I do it? So
Right.
Taking one thing probably is the best advice, I think.
Well, I've had many people say this is as big a shift is from going from flat to round in your philosophy of what you do and how you approach it, and it is a big shift.
Okay, well, so what's the one thing that you changed? are you trying to implement?
Well, I didn't choose just one. I chose a few.
You didn't follow your own advice.
I didn't. Well, I kind of had some time over the summer to think about it and, okay, well, this is what I want to do. And so, for instance, I went from student desks to tables, and we're doing a lot of things that are more community building, so that I'm hoping that we have this sense of, I help you, you help me, let's reach our common goal together. I also moved my teacher desk out to give us more space. I have a lot more independent activities set up so that they have independent goals that they're reaching, but they're cooperating with each other in order to do that. And then I used a tool in there to set a classroom goal for everyone to learn how to tie their shoes. And so it was just trying little things here and there where they fit in.
And can everybody tie their shoes?
December is our goal. I'll let you know.
And December is a goal that children selected.
They selected. Mm-hmm. Yep, they did.
So we're seeing in pockets, we took more administrators this year. I know that Dan, Brian, Mark have all used it. Tim is becoming what do we call him, the tardy czar at the high school.
It has been, but now I'm just using different tools to get at it.
Yeah. And it's been interesting because I'll just pick on Tim specifically. When they first started talking about the tardies, no, you tell the story.
Yeah, so,
Why don't you describe how you might have usually, if the teacher said, we got a tardy problem at this school, what would you usually have done?
Yeah, what we typically would do is we would, real quickly, we would brainstorm and sit and talk. Well, what are we going to do to fix this? Or why do we think that there's a tardy problem? What are we going to do to fix it? And then we would just, all in one meeting, or maybe in a couple meetings. Yeah, tardy.
I think
Without
parties are.
Parties are. Kate works with my mom, so she'll go back and report, listen, Victoria, Tim is the parties are.
I just want to know how you got that job. I was like,
yeah. So typically we would in a meeting or two, maybe I speak from, I've done this in the last, my 8 years in this role. We've acted this way. We have procedures in place that we use at the high school to try to improve attendance that were based on just what I'm talking about. We think this will work. We think these are the causes. Let's try this, and then we'll see some improvement. Try some extrinsic motivators. Well, so instead, what we did, and then we would just throw something out, and we would say, well, does it seem like things are getting better? And yeah, they worked for a while, but we never really had anything to base that off of, and didn't really measure where we were at currently. So after, understanding a little bit about profound knowledge and getting some tools in a process for attacking it or dealing with an issue, and it was a kind of a scary thing because in front of the staff we had to say, okay, instead of saying we're going to work on tardies, I said, well, what's an attendance related? I want you to write down on a sticky note. What's an attendance related issue that you have? What's the one thing that's the biggest concern to you? And we did something that's called affinity diagram. We throw them all up on the wall and kind of group them and come up. And so, which again, one of the key things in all these examples you hear are, is going to your workers, I guess, or your the people. In our case it was the teachers, but it's doing the same with students too. Getting the feedback from them. So, what is the biggest issues? We threw them all up, and it just was kind of absences and tardies, but really tardies was kind of the biggest thing. So. We didn't want to assume that it was tardies, because what if tardy was really low and there was something else that was a lot bigger issue. So once we identified that, then we said, okay, now what, I think we did this is where I need my flip chart here to be telling the story, but it seems like the next step that we did was to have them define what is a tardy, operationally define it, because we never did that before, So we're all on the same page. So when anybody puts a tardy into Power School attendance, what does that mean? We never had even though it was in the procedures, we hadn't revisited and said, are we really? Is it? So we came up with that definition, operationally defined it, and then agreed we'd start to do this. And we would communicate it with students because, oh, by the way, isn't that a novel idea? As we get them involved with what we're working on, it affects them directly. So we communicated it to students. And then we've been charting it. So then along the way, as the teachers, and I said, and of course people, and again, the risk that was really taken was, some of the people said, well, we're not tough enough. Our consequences aren't tough enough. Administrators aren't doing their job enough. That was some of what came out. And so, that's, an affront on me a little bit, and okay. But they also wanted to jump right away to, what are the consequences going to be? Let's just get right to the consequences. Seriously, if we want to get this better, that's what we need to do. I said, no, we got to know how big of a problem have we got before we jump into what the causes are going to be. So anyway, so we started charting that, and then the other thing that we did, and I emailed David, says, well, now what? Now we're going to wait and collect this data. He recommended that you go to the students, and you've got these sample groups called classes, and go out and take some sample groups, and so I went to like 12 of them and said, why are you late? Why do you choose to be late, and why are you randomly late? And they generated some kind of a similar kind of an activity. Then we went back to them again and did another tool to determine, well, what, and I'm in the process of tabulating those right now. What are, of those causes you listed, is when you choose to be late as opposed to when you're randomly late, what are the most significant causes? So then when we start to go back to them again, and go back to the students, so now what can we do to address those causes? We've got some data to base it on. And then whatever we decide to move, and maybe it is tougher, maybe they'll say, I just need to, Mr. Carver, you need to give out tougher consequences. Maybe that's what the cause will be, and we'll try that. And then we'll chart the data, then we'll look at the data some more, and then we'll be able to say, hey, we got a common understanding, we kept track of tardies, we studied it, we came up with causes, we developed a plan of action, then we'll look at the data and see if it improved. And if it did, then great, we'll keep doing that. And if it didn't, then we'll have to come back and say, well, then what are we going to do, David? but ultimately, that's kind of the idea, because people, one of the things that happened is they said, oh, we had music a few years ago. We had, in our old building, we had set this thing where you play music in the hallways for like 3 minutes, and then it would go off. And it was just a thing that we heard about at a school, and we tried it again. We just threw it out there. And there was talk at this meeting with the teachers that day of, why don't we do that again? That'd be great. Didn't it work? And I said, well, it seemed like it worked, but I'll have to be honest with you. We hadn't had a common understanding for defining it. We didn't have a common understanding that everybody has to keep track of it, and it's critical. And so I couldn't even tell you definitively, pull the data out and say it was accurate data to say it really did make an improvement. You know what I mean? So whereas now, we've done those things. We're all on the same page. People are all recording their attendance with the same definition. So now whatever measure we come up with will be, if it works or not, we'll be able to look and see.
Well, the traditional way to operate is what we call random acts of improvement. So let's try this, let's try that, and let's try this, and let's try that. And pretty soon, students, everybody in the system, they're just sick of going on to the next thing and never really understanding why are we doing this and where did it come from. So getting that foundation takes a lot more time than just sitting around dreaming up what are we going to try next. But they should be able to come to much more foundational reasons about what the problem is. I know when we did our tardy study at our high school, it came down to two things. Why are you late to class? And the number one thing was the classes don't start on time. So we met the enemy, and it was us. Teachers didn't like that. They said, that's ridiculous. My class always starts on time. So we got 30 kids together that sat in classes for a month and kept track of when a class was supposed to start and when something of value towards learning started to take place. And then we averaged that all out. It came out to be 12 minutes. 12 minutes before something, so, what was happening the first 12 minutes? Well, filling out tardy slips for people that are late, absentee slips, all the stuff of running things. And so kids are just making choices. Hang around and talk to my friends in the hallway. What's the punishment? They just weigh the punishment against the crime. So even if I am late, don't miss anything. Okay? So when you change